Roundtable crew on with us. Fellas, how are you doing this morning? Starting off first with Seth Fisher. Seth, how are you this morning?
Good morning. I've got a copy of Halo Victors right here. I'm going to bring one by for you a little bit later, Sam. I also, that's Halo Victors. Just go to MGoBlog.com/25. They're on sale now. They're actually in underground printing stores right now. Also today, it's New Bacon Book Day.
Okay.
You know this? John Bacon's got a new book. It's called The Gales of November. It's talking about the Edmund Fitzgerald. And he, once again, did not take my advice for the title because I wanted to have it called Get Your Gumi Got Me. But I am stoked. Another Bacon book. I love when Bacon has a new book. So
all right.
Got some reason to do this before the summer ends, huh?
Exciting news all the way around. Craig Ross, how are you this morning?
I'm fine. We're waiting for Brian or the electrician or someone like him. I'm sure he'll make an appearance once the season starts, or as it gets going. I got some of my ordinary irrelevance that I need to correct. A couple of weeks ago, I referenced Prince Hal making fun of Polonius and Henry IV Part 2. That turned out to be wrong, as one of Seth's people on the MGoBlog board pointed out. It was not Prince Hal, but it was Hamlet making fun of Polonius. And so I apologize for that and thank the listener who corrected me. The other one is sort of sad. I mentioned 2 weeks ago that J. Fred Muggs was still alive. In fact, that week he had died. And so one of my important persons in my childhood, J. Fred Muggs, has passed at, I think he was 74 years old. Other things, since you were talking about Mr. Brightside, I think Michigan can't get stale. And at the end of the game, if they win, they should play Mr. Blue Sky by ELO, a great song, upbeat. And if they lose, you could play Elvis Costello's Shipbuilding, which is a beautiful song, anti-war song, but it would work. So that's my suggestion for New Michigan traditions. They need to keep evolving. And Mr. Blue Sky will probably become cliche at some point. So we
play that song all the time in my house. That's like the anthem for my son for some reason.
Which one?
Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah.
So upbeat, fun, not boring, sort of eclectic. Jeff Lynne, I think, is the writer of that. Someone will tell me I'm wrong. In any event, those are my weekly irrelevancies.
Okay. I did want to touch on, you mentioned Hail to the Victors. Give me some highlights. Give me some highlights from Hail to the Victors 2025 there, Seth.
Well, we got a feature by Sam Webb for the first time. That was really interesting. I thought the cool way you structured that article, right? Because you start talking about it's all the things you didn't really know about the Bryce Underwood recruitment, right? The things that people didn't understand about how that really went down. Because I think people just have an assumption about how those recruitments start. They assume that, you grew up in Michigan right near Ann Arbor, that he was a Michigan fan. He was an LSU fan.
Yes, LSU fan.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they assume it was the money, and it was like, okay, the money had to be there. They had to have that conversation, and Michigan had to be ready to have that conversation. I think that people assume that Michigan were recruiting him for 4 or 5 years because he was around and he was but they didn't really turn it on until they had to be prepared, right? Michigan needed to have their ducks in a row and have the menu, I guess is how you described it, right? They had to have the menu set and say, here's what we have. And then the best part of this is the very end. Sorry to spoil it, but the Michigan fans completely unexpectedly come through because Bryce goes down to LSU and they lose to Alabama in the rain. And the LSU fans, and you can hear it on the recording. I just watched it because I was scouting Justice Haynes, and you can hear on the recording the LSU fans are just booing their team relentlessly. and he was down there for that. So you figure that has to affect the things. I don't think he wrote that, but it's, I'm putting that context in there because then he comes back and Michigan fans start showing up to his games just on their own. No one told them to do this. They just did, on my board, on your board, they just said, let's go. Let's put on our Michigan gear and go. And I think that showed what this fan base is about, and why Michigan has been for 150 years, a top program in college football when they don't have the biggest state, when they don't have their biggest recruiting grounds, when they don't have all the connections and power that like an Ohio State has, or Hollywood like USC has, or Nike like Oregon has. Michigan has its fans. And that superpower is what won them the Bryce Underwood recruitment. I think it's a fantastic story about what really makes Michigan, Michigan.
Yeah, I just don't find much intrigue in Michigan's quarterback situation. I just would be absolutely shocked if it's not Bryce. I'd be shocked if he's not the quarterback in game one. I mean, things happen. Mikey could rise up, I suppose, but I would be surprised.
Let me speak to that because I would not be. From John Jansen is making noises that Underwood has been airmailing a lot of balls in practice, that he's been sailing a lot of balls. I'm not saying that means much in itself, but I'd heard so little about Mikey Keene since he was injured in the spring. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go back and look at him. And I looked at his numbers first, and his numbers are really very good. I mean, this is a career 70% plus passer who's played in a whole lot of games, thrown for a whole lot of yards. And okay, that's a start. Secondly, I went back and I thought, well, did he play anybody good last year? Well, he actually played against Michigan last year, and he was 22 of 36 for about 250 yards. And there were 2 interceptions. The first one was ball thrown right in the wide receiver's hands, who doinked off it and was intercepted. And the second one was late in the game on a pick six, a great play by our corner. With Will Johnson. So that if you look at his performance in that game against a pretty good defense, even at that point in the season, he played quite respectably. And so I'm not saying Bryce Underwood isn't more talented. Obviously he is. I'm not saying that Bryce Underwood doesn't have the highest ceiling on the planet. He might. He might be Josh Allen for all I know. But on the other hand, how many freshman quarterbacks come in and kill it right from day one?
Very few.
None. I mean, the guy at Clemson, that's about it. Was Chad Henne a true freshman? He was pretty good.
Well, let me open my Hail to the Victors because we actually have an article on this.
He got NBA because of injury, right? Yeah. And Trevor Lawrence didn't even start game 1. Trevor Lawrence started game 5.
Okay, there we go. And so do I think that Underwood will be the starter as the season goes along? Yeah, I think that's quite likely. But I don't want to discount Mikey Keene, who has a history of being a pretty good quarterback, including against Michigan last year. Yeah. And so to discount him and just assume that Bryce is going to take over that position seems a little premature, someplace between premature and Pollyanna-ish. Although my guess is this: if he comes out and he's the starter, he's probably one hell of a player, because I have a lot of respect for Mikey Keene.
See, here's why I disagree, because I just think the circumstances sort of kind of really mitigate the comparison with Trevor Lawrence, for instance. You were talking about a Kelly Bryant who is a returning starter on a playoff team. I mean, this was a guy who had established himself as a playoff caliber quarterback with chemistry with those guys in that scheme,
in that program, right?
Chad Henne, Chad Henne, him getting that job as a true freshman, it's not a real comparison to Bryce getting into this job, or I guess it could kind of be. It could kind of be because Mikey did get injured in the spring, and I think that's one of the things that's helping Bryce in this scenario, because while Mikey is coming in with some experience with Chip, it's not totally the same offense, and he missed the opportunity to get immersed into this offense, and he missed the opportunity to establish chemistry with these guys. So you're dealing with a guy who has way more talent, who had a chance to get more chemistry with these receivers, with these guys here and now. And so he's got a jump start in this offense already, young though he may be. I think that gave him enough of a head start to not get lapped by Mikey Keene. And I think for Mikey Keene to be the guy, I think you got to lap him. You can't just beat Bryce Underwood. You can't just be a little better to win the job. I think you got to be a lot better. You got to be way better to be the starter.
I don't agree with that. I mean, if they're the same, if you think they're about the same, you play Bryce Underwood. But if Mikey is better, even if it's just nominally better, that's where you got to go.
I don't think
you've got it. Your team has to see that the best player is playing.
Right, you're trying to because look what you're doing. Look, let me tell you something. You're saying the team has to play the best player. Yes, the best player this year. Okay, right. You have to do what's best for the team. Okay, correct. You get to the end of the season. You're playing Ohio State. Do you want Bryce Underwood in his 12th game, or do you want Mikey Keene in his 12th game?
Well, that's perhaps real. But I don't want to. But I want to win every game, and I want to play our best players every game. And if they're very close, I understand why you'd go with Bryce. But if they're not,
you got to get them ready. You got to get them ready.
He's not going to beat Ohio. He's not going to be ready for Ohio State.
I'm not concerned about one game. I'm concerned about the whole season and not one game.
That is the season.
not for me. Maybe
what is the one thing? What is the one thing that anybody in the entire country who pays attention to college football knows about the 2024 season? 13-10. That's the only event that happened last year in college football that anyone cares about. That is the season.
Well,
unless we're going to win the national championship,
that view.
That's the season.
It feels like a very Michigan State sort of consciousness, and that ain't.
We didn't invent this consciousness, though. They did.
But I'm saying, listen, if we're talking about a scenario, if it's close, then he's, you are going to have a situation where playing Bryce makes that much of a difference against New Mexico State. Playing Bryce instead of Mikey is going to give you that much less of a chance, or playing Bryce against Oklahoma is going to give you that much less of a chance if it's really that close.
Now,
we're talking about on the margins, right?
And maybe Sam, you're at practices and know that. I'm not, and I don't.
No. We're setting up a hypothetical. I said if it's close, if it's not close, then of course you got to go. If Mikey Keene winds up being way better than Bryce, then of course you got to go with Mikey Keene.
I say if he's even somewhat better, you got to go with Mikey Keene.
No, because if he's just a little bit better, then in 1 week, in one New Mexico game, that's going to flip. Right? In one, you gotta imagine Bryce Underwood is 17 years old right now. Right? He turns 18 right before the season. He doesn't turn 18 for another month. Okay. Mikey Keene is so old. He was the backup to Dylan Gabriel when Dylan Gabriel was a freshman. Right? He was
probably going to get cut by the Browns, incidentally.
But listen, okay. But I'm saying Mikey Keene, I know nothing against Mikey Keene, and I'm really glad he's here because, you got to have another quarterback, and you got to have someone who's been around and knows how to run things. But you run a different offense with Mikey Keene. And if you go through the season as far as you can with Mikey Keene until Bryce Underwood is officially better than him in all facets, you're going to have to change your offense midseason. And that's not just affecting the quarterback. Okay, the other guys are going to have to affect how they run things. And you can't really, they tried to do it last year. They tried to switch gears and go to Alex Orji, and they just did not have enough Alex Orji offense planned at that point to run anything. So then they asked Alex to run some things that they'd planned for, Davis Warren, and he couldn't. He couldn't throw it. He couldn't throw downfield. He didn't have that accuracy. Now, we saw in the spring game that Bryce overthrows balls, right? And actually, it's a little bit on his on some of his tape too. When Bryce is on, he is on. And I'm not saying that he's going to be a great quarterback as a freshman. I go back to Hail the Victors. We had Michael Elkheim write an article about other freshman 5-star starters. And the list, there's Quinn Ewers, Vince Young, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Berlin, Justin Fields, Terrell Pryor, Arch Manning, Bryce Young, Matt Berkeley, Jimmy Clausen, and Mark Sanchez. That's the list. Everyone else wasn't ranked that high. No one else really had an opportunity to start early on. A couple of those guys redshirted, like Vince Young. And then he eventually comes down to Terrell Pryor as the closest example. Because what was Pryor? He didn't have to run that offense, right? And if he'd come to Michigan, probably a very different story. But he didn't have to run that offense at Ohio State. But Ohio State put him in there. And they got him experience, and they ran Dave, which is what they call power. And they had a great defense. And Ohio State had a good season. They beat Michigan. And they went on to have a very successful time afterwards. Now, if they'd gone with Todd Boakman that year, I don't think that they have as much success that season. I don't think that Terrell Pryor has as much success later on in his career.
I think it's simple. It's the same as left tackle. Babalola better than Evan Link. That's who you play. Link better than Babalola. Play Link. I mean,
better at what though? Better
at pass pro.
We need
overall better at run blocking.
I'm just saying though, if you're going to be a running team if you have Alex Orji at quarterback, and you have two left tackles, and one of them is better at pass pro, so much better at pass pro that overall he's an 87, and the other guy's an 86, but the other guy is just a run blocker, and you're running every single play, like you have to take into context what you're doing. The question isn't who is going to grade out in the highest total grade. Who is going to be the best for Michigan this year? And I think all the factors have to be considered. And when Sam's right, when you do that, Mikey Keene, if he is a lot better than Bryce, you got to play him. But if you're going to change your entire offense to fit Mikey Keene's skills this year and plan on going into the season with Mikey Keene as your quarterback this year, they needed him in spring to do that, because that is a timing offense. That's a complicated offense that might have different receivers that he needs to get relative with. And also, you have to factor the fact that Bryce Underwood is going to improve faster than almost any quarterback we've ever had, both because of the personality and the type of makeup he is, and because he's so young. Right? And he has a skill in his legs that is just going to change the entire way you have to play him and the entire way you have to play everybody else.
You're not going to run a lot of read options with Bryce Underwood.
The threat. But
it's
the
a threat, but you're not going to run a lot. I mean, his threat is more like Vince Young, his ability to freelance. And in that context, you don't need to be revamping an offense between Bryce
you just gotta show
and Mikey.
You just got to show it. You just got to show it. You don't have
That's
to.
Fine. You can show.
You don't have to run it. You don't have to run them a ton. Yeah. They didn't run JJ a ton.
Exactly right. That comparison is exactly what I would say.
I wouldn't even make with a JJ comp, because JJ, when he was a freshman, was what, 195?
Right. Yeah. I expect
Bryce is like 230.
With Craig's point, I'm just saying to Craig's point, if you took the stance that I don't want to run my quarterback a lot, you don't have to. But to your point, Seth, you put Mikey Keene in there, the respect isn't going to be the same as when you put Bryce in there for having your quarterback as a run threat. It's just going to be different.
That's absolutely true.
It's going to be different.
Again, I mean, it still comes down to this for me, and it's not my evaluation. It's when the coaches and the team are looking at their relative performances, which one is moving the ball, and if Keene is moving the ball better than Bryce, I think it's deleterious to your entire team to play the guy who isn't moving it as well.
Craig, I go back to last year. When the coaches all of a sudden last year, when we went through the entire offseason talking about Alex Orji. Alex Orji is going to be great. Everyone, you can put a microphone in front of everybody. And then no. But anyone in the program, you put a microphone in front of any of them, and they're like, Alex Orji is the dude. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks out, we start hearing about accuracy. Right? Like that is what we're going to be judging people on. And that was the moment you knew that there was a problem with Alex Orji and that they were going to have to go down to Davis Warren. Now, if you have that situation with Bryce, we'll hear about it in the next week or so. If all of a sudden they switch to talking about, Bryce has been hitting 60% and Keene has been hitting 80%, then But that's not what we're grading on right now. That's not what we're basing this on right now. And as a Michigan fan, that's not what we want. We want to get Bryce in there against New Mexico, get him used to it, have him you don't need to have him run to be the entire offense. Okay, this is not Bryce Underwood in 2027 we're talking about. We want Bryce Underwood in like the freshman year of Terrell Pryor version of this. That's all I'm asking for.
If you give Michigan fans or any fans, Michigan fans are better than most. If you give any set of fans what they want, all you'll know is how many holes fill the Albert Hall and nothing else. and so my point is, hey, if we come out in game one and Bryce Underwood is starting, I'm happy. Because to me, I think Mikey Keene is probably a completely competent quarterback, probably better than anyone else we had playing quarterback last year.
Well, that's fair.
Any question about that?
And so if Underwood is in fact starting, I figure, hey, he played better and I'm happy. But I also think it's a mistake not to play your guy who's your best guy on the vision that somehow there's this higher ceiling and that eventually it'll work out.
I absolutely think if it's close, you play the higher ceiling guy. If it's close, you play the higher ceiling guy every day of the week.
Let's go back a couple more years, Craig. Okay, 2022. All right, you're about this point in fall practice, and Cade McNamara is playing some of the best football he's ever played. At least that's what they were telling us, right?
Yeah.
Did they call it? Did they go, okay, Cade's our guy and we're going to go with Cade. He won us the Big Ten championship. Or did they stretch it out and let JJ cook a little bit? And then once they got in the game situation, things shifted, didn't they? And we saw both of them play. And then it was obvious. But it probably wasn't obvious. But I'm saying it probably wasn't obvious at this point. And if they had close the books, and I think this is what I'm listening to you and saying this is what you're suggesting, that you go with the guy who's playing who's the best overall grade in that little
JJ
world, which was Cade at this point.
Cade early. It was Cade early.
No, when they do the 3-game thing where they said
early in camp it was Cade. It was absolutely Cade because remember JJ was coming off an injury. That was why. That was why.
All right.
Yeah, but they held it open, and Cade was mad about that because Cade was like, "I'm better than this man."
He was wrong.
And he was wrong for the same reason you're wrong, because
he was wrong because
projection is part of the math. Okay, we're not talking about because you know what? You don't win football games in August. Okay, you win football games every single week, and you get better. And if you don't get better, you're going to get left behind because every other team's getting better.
Well, we better win a football game in August because I think we play one in August.
Okay,
fair.
But I know. Do you think that Bryce Underwood can't beat New Mexico?
I think he probably can. I sure hope so.
He can beat New Mexico. Come on.
Yeah, I'd like to see things, and I like to see things and make my evaluations. But I'm, the coaches' evaluations are obviously going to be a lot better than mine, and so my question is, who's playing better? And if there's any light, if the light is just the barest twilight, okay, I'm with Sam. But if there's any light there and one guy's moving the team and one isn't, you go with the guy who's moving the team.
Yeah,
then you work the other guy, and then you work the other guy in.
What you just said, we're not disagreeing with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just made it. You just set up a scenario where one guy is performing way better than the other.
No, one guy's moving the ball and the other
one guy's moving the team and one guy's not.
Right.
That is Mikey Keene is performing way better than Bryce.
If that's what you call way better, then that's
one guy's moving the team and the other guy is not. He's performing way better.
One guy's not throwing interceptions and the other guy is.
That's performing way better.
Okay.
The one guy's throwing interceptions and the other guy's not.
Okay.
He's performing way better.
All right.
So,
ladies and gentlemen, you just heard on talk radio just now a consensus reached. That's what it sounds like. If you ever wonder what it looks like when people who disagree reach a consensus, that was just it right there. We agree.
There we go.
Right. Right. I mean, that's really, really simple. But if it's close, if the metrics are one guy is slightly ahead of the other, I mean, I don't think there's any. You go with the higher ceiling guy.
All right,
because the higher ceiling guy,
I can go with that algorithm.
Yeah, the higher ceiling guy gives you that make it right ability. And coaches say it all the time. Sometimes the player has got to just make me right. And man, I mean, how many times did we just see number 9 make them right? It was a lot. And I'm not saying that Bryce is going to be able to do that nearly as many times as number 9 did, but a time or two, I mean, he might be able to do it a time or two at the end of the season if he's playing from the start of the season. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're banking on. That's what you're banking on. If he earns it, by playing well enough to make it an even race at least.
I mean,
so
you got to have, and this is just a little beyond what we can tell and way beyond analysis, but as a fan of football, when you get a guy like Bryce Underwood, you got to have a little faith that something's going to happen.
Right.
Because I've been there when Denard Robinson dropped his first snap right on those untied shoelaces.
Yep.
And then he picks it up and he's dancing around 12 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And then all of a sudden, like the Fenix open up, right? And I was there when J.J. McCarthy is running around to the sideline as a true freshman. You're like, where is this guy going? And all of a sudden, from one sideline, 18 yards behind the line of scrimmage, he chucks the ball, and you're like, okay, there's an interception. And suddenly, there's a receiver running underneath it.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Ticked him off.
Yeah.
Ticked him off. He was pissed in press conference. It was like, oh, man, that guy can do that. It's like, yeah, that guy can do that. That was
Why am I blanking on the name of the receiver? Who was the transfer that year?
I remember the guy too. I can't remember his name, but we remember the pass.
We remember the pass, and like that's and do you remember? I remember Mike Hart in 2004, right? They were playing around with David Underwood and Jerome Jackson. They gave I can't believe I still remember all these names, but they Pierre Rembert had a couple carries at Dalen Baldwin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they give the ball to Mike Hart, and they're running into like hard lines. So he runs into, I think it was San Diego State or something like that. He just runs into a linebacker, bounces off, and then keeps going. And then like they try to tackle him, and he churns out. So he turns an 8-yard into a 14-yard run. And that was like the first run you ever saw from Mike Hart. This is why we are football fans in the first place. Desmond Howard, the first time you ever saw him catch a pass, I think it took until like mid-season in the 80s, and they weren't throwing the ball because it was like Michael Taylor was the quarterback, and all of a sudden, this Desmond Howard kid who was a running back is out there dancing around people, and you're just like, this happens all the time. And I think that the idea of Bryce Underwood is that he's supposed to be one of those guys. And I want you to get yourself in a mindset because that's what's really going to just carry your fandom into the next 4 years or 3 years. I'm sorry, Bryce is not sticking around 4 years. Next 3 years is that's going to happen. Something like that is going to happen with Bryce Underwood on the field, and that's why we're all excited.
Well, and that was, that is really, if you think about it, that was the play that Dabo Swinney made. Because when he made the switch from Kelly Bryant to Trevor Lawrence, they were 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly Bryant wasn't playing poorly, Craig. He didn't lose the job. They were winning those games. He benched a 4-0 quarterback who had gone to the playoffs the year before.
But my guess is, Sam, the reason why he did it was because Lawrence was better.
He had more upside.
Not just more upside. He was better in the moment, which he proved as soon as he got in the lineup. And so, play the best guy. I'm in for meritocracy.
If he was the best, he would have played him from the start. He said, "I got a returning quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just bench a returning quarterback. I can't do that because
that's the conundrum that Harbaugh had with JJ and Cade.
But this guy has more upside. Like
the Lawrence thing is just Lawrence thing doesn't matter, guys, because there's no way Michigan has a receiver. If Michigan has the wide receiver room that Trevor Lawrence walked into, I don't care which quarterback you throw out there.
Right? True. But I'm just saying, I'm making the point that even Dabo Swinney went with the upside.
It wasn't the upside. He went with the better player. From minute one, he was the better player.
I don't think that was a story.
He didn't go with the better player from minute one.
He didn't go with the guy who was playing better at that point. He went with a guy who was like, I can't keep this guy off the field.
If Lawrence was better from the first game, he should have been playing Lawrence, and it was a mistake.
He didn't.
If he evolved over his freshman year to the point where he could play in game 5, then he should have played him in game 5.
You're circling back again. I think we reached a consensus on this, right?
Yeah.
If there's daylight between them, then you got to play you got to play Mikey. If there isn't,
play Bryce. I agree.
And the story right now is that there isn't. Then you play Bryce because you're going to be a much better team this year.
If it's close, you play Bryce.
Yeah. So I wonder what you guys think. We got to get to a break. I wonder if you guys buy the talk out of Columbus. I don't know. We talked about this before. But it persists, this talk of the quarterback battle in Columbus between Julian Sayin and whoever this other dude is. But Julian Sayin's the number one quarterback in his class, transfers to Bama, is supposed to be the guy. And it sounds like shades of 23 all over again down there in Columbus. And they're like, this is a battle, and we can't name a starter, and it couldn't in the spring, and it's still ongoing now. I wonder what you guys make of that. I thought it was just coach speak back in 23. It turned out not to be, even though he wasn't to blame for them losing to Michigan again.
He was amazing in that game.
But
no Ohio State fan will believe me, but I charted that game, and he was great. Okay, he was the only reason that team had any chance against a much better Michigan team. He kept you in that game.
Yeah, so I'm not saying he wasn't to blame, but they were like, it's stuff with quarterback. So it was something to that actually being a race, and there being reason for some concern there, even though he wasn't to blame for the Michigan game. Which leads me to believe that this isn't just coach speak either. What do you make of what's going on down there in Columbus at the quarterback position? Let's get to a break. Be back on the other side here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTK, online at big1050.com. Gonna get the sound. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Yes,
it's working.
I listened to Wink's presser and Chip Lindsey's, and two things. One, that Chip Lindsey came up with a new phrase in his presser that I thought was very clever. It was like Don King's invention of the word humblified. But he said that someone was a blue pale kind of guy, which which, which is like blue collar and lunch pail put together. Very clever. So I'm going to say he's a lunch collar kind of guy, right?
A blue pail of grit.
Yeah, blue pail. I thought that was great, and I don't think it was a malapropism. I think it was, nah, I'm just doing this. He's a blue pail kind of guy. I love that Chip Lindsey did that. A plus. And the other thing that struck me was Wink, and maybe this is just a complete projection by me, but I felt Wink just seemed much more comfortable and relaxed than at any point in time he had been last year. I don't know if you felt that when you watched that, Sam. He just seemed like, hey, I'm in my element here. I'm comfortable. I've established my bona fides. I got, and I really felt that was nice. I thought, regardless of where he goes in his career, I felt like it was cool that he seemed so comfortable.
Yeah, man. I think he's totally settled with the guys. I think the chemistry, I'm talking about the player. I think the chemistry with the players is on a totally different level. That built over the course of the season. I thought you were going to make observation on his vibe with Chip Lindsey. I think the vibe between the coordinators is different. That's my observation.
Yeah, that could be true also. It seemed like,
well, they're from the same generation finally.
That could be
right. Like last year, Wink, because like Harbaugh made this whole room full of like 30-year-olds, right? And then Wink walks in, and it's just like, who are these kids, right? These are my children's age. So like there's another adult in the room that he can probably have some talk with, and there's a lot of other adults, right? They brought back Eric Campbell. Right, they brought back Juan Castillo, and I was at that golf outing thing that they had for Champions Circle, and you saw the table of coaches this year was just so much more mature than the table of coaches, right? Like last year Ron Bellamy was probably one of the oldest guys at that table, and now he's back to being the median age.
Yeah, man. I think there's something to be said for the way that defensive staff was able to weather their adversity. Their talent had a lot to do with it too. Make no mistake. I don't want to discount that they were immensely talented.
Right.
But yeah, man, their experience certainly really helped them navigate that time too, in ways that I don't really think the offensive staff was really equipped to do, and without Sharon kind of stepping in and chipping in some as well to kind of, hey, let's come up with a patchwork plan here in a moment about how we're going to just do things just to be competent to make it through and lean on this defense and the kicking game to kind of survive.
Yeah.
And then he went in and augmented the offensive staff in the way that you're talking about.
I'm glad you said that, because this with Wink, with Chip Lindsey, with Newsome today, who's awesome, I always think, they all seem to talk about the other coaches and their comfort level with the staff as a whole. And maybe there was some of that last year, but I don't recall it. I mean, it seemed that this was a focus for all the coaches, at least that I've heard talk and answer questions this year. So yeah, that's
so I don't think it's contentiousness as much as it is regard for know-how. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's like, that dude knows what he's doing kind of thing. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, there seemed to be a lot of respect, and there may be respect there generally, but it just seemed like this is something that all these guys stressed in their words one way or the other, and so I liked that very much. And it would seem that when you've got that level of mutual respect in your staff, it makes it easier to come to consensus, maybe,
30 seconds back, fellas.
or to
Yeah.
make adjustments on things that may not be working as well as they like.
Yeah, and I thought there were so many signs of real growth from the staff from Wink, from just that defensive staff as a whole, that I think they'll apply to the team overall, that I think is really going to help them moving forward. But we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah. I think one of the most interesting things that Rob Moore said recently was that they had a kind of a let's tell each other the truth meeting. And that was right before Northwestern, right before Indiana. And the charting shows it. And it wasn't just Wink that listened, right? It was the players that had to hear some things from Wink as well. Right. And I think that when you have those opportunities,
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on a Big 1050 WTKA, online at big1050.com. Sam Webb. We got the MGoBlog Roundtable back with us again. Before we get back to it, though, I want to tell those of you who are in the market for a new vehicle that you should get on board with Brighton Ford. Hey, folks, Brighton Ford is the ultimate destination for your new car or truck. The summer sales event is going on right now, courtesy of Ford, and it's a great time to buy. From now through September 2nd, well-qualified lessees can lease a 2025 Ford F-150 for as low as $284 a month, or lease a 2025 Ford Explorer Active for as low as $326 a month, both on $3,500 down. For 36 months, get 0% financing, no down payment, 0 payments for up to 90 days on select vehicles. Plus, get a complimentary maintenance plan for 2 years. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD or see dealer for details. Get on board with Brighton Ford. All right, so Mr. Toth on the other side of the glass. We got Mr. Ross and Mr. Fisher with me here on the MGoBlog Roundtable. And I asked you fellas before we went to the break, I said, hey, are you buying this smoke out of Columbus about a quarterback battle? I mean, it's supposed to be a foregone conclusion that Julian Sayin is the guy, right? He's, he was there last year as the backup. He had the the number one player in the country tag, and he's supposed to be the golden boy now, and they're saying he's not. What's this dude's name? Kineholtz?
Lincoln Kineholtz.
Yeah, he's giving them what for?
We're not the program that gets to make fun of Ohio State's quarterback situation. Let's put that out there.
I'm not making fun of it. I'm raised. I have a raised eyebrow because this is supposed to be not a thing, and they're actually saying it is a thing. And after seeing them in 23, I'm not taking it lightly, because when they said it before, it was actually a thing.
I think that is Kyle McCord unfairness. I'm not going to go too far, but McCord was a good quarterback for them. And coming out of these competitions, Ohio State gets good quarterbacks who then have ridiculously good receivers. I think they might have the best receiver in the history of college football, who's only a true sophomore there. So their passing game is going to be fine. Now, why is Sayin taking a while? This is one of the things that we saw in that article that I was talking about earlier, by Michael Elcott in Hail of the Victors, that the stand-up quarterback, the pocket passers, take longer than the dual threats to really be effective, because everyone knows how to use their legs, right? When you're a little child, you know how to use your legs. When you're a pocket style quarterback, it's more about figuring out where your leverage is and not getting that wrong. And I'm not an insider at Ohio State or anything like that, but Sayin is that kind of guy. Now, he has talent coming out of his ears, but you saw Dylan Raiola last year. They had to kind of kid glove him as a freshman. And this year is going to be, the next step. And this year is that next step for Sayin. But it really takes, to year 3 for that type of quarterback to really just be a major difference maker. If Sayin is already competing with Lincoln Kineholtz equally at this point, Ohio State's problem is Ohio State fans hate you if you're not winning, right? If you're just not demolishing everybody, even if it's like, in the third quarter and you're not up 48-0, they get on you. There is no love in Ohio State. So if you are not beating teams, and that goes back to like the whole Craig thing, right? You don't have time to sit around and wait for Julian Sayin to get better, right? If you got a guy right now who could use those receivers to beat the pants off of everybody, you're going to go with that guy. And Lincoln Kindholtz was a better portal pickup as far as rankings and, projections and whatnot than any guy that Michigan got. So like I said, we're not the ones to talk. I'm not concerned for Ohio State and their passing game. Once again, as long as you can get the ball to Jeremiah Smith, he's going to do the rest. They're fine.
I saw the Ohio State spring game, and I thought their quarterback play was okay. It wasn't spectacular, but it was okay. I don't think they're, going to have a major issue. I don't think they've got a superstar at quarterback. But
Did you think they had a superstar last year?
I thought he was okay last year. Yeah.
Did you think he was a superstar?
No. Will
so
Howard,
what do you think? What do you think about this year's quarterback relative to Will Howard?
About the same. About the same. Which will be competent. And there's probably a lot of upside with Sayin because he does have a good arm. But I mean, they'll be fine at quarterback, but I don't think they've got Lawrence there. I don't think they've got even the guy at Washington there, Michael Penix.
They might have that guy in Tavian St. Clair, but I don't think he came in and everyone was like, that guy's not going to play this year.
Right.
So,
they'll be fine at quarterback. That's not going to, that isn't going to, but they're not going to dominate at that position. I mean, I'm not sure they'll be better than Michigan at quarterback right now. That's for sure.
I want to correct myself. Kindholtz was not a transfer. He was he was a quarterback out of South Dakota. They actually played him in the that game against Missouri, the bowl game. Now that I'm not holding that against him because he was a lot younger at that point, but it could just be that he's a effective quarterback who's reaching that point in his career where he's been in the program for long enough and he knows the system, and that's what you need to do, right? You need to find your leverage and get the ball there.
And Ohio State and quarterbacks is kind of weird. I mean, they had Joe Burrow, right? Mm-hmm. He's pretty good, and he didn't last there.
He was blocked. He was blocked, so he wasn't going to play. So he transferred.
Yeah, well, they didn't play their best guy, and so he transferred. And then you had McCord, who was, I thought, a completely good quarterback, and didn't he play pretty well? Was he at Syracuse? And
he led the nation, didn't he?
Yeah, in passing. Yeah, they didn't like him either, so he's out of there.
He should have transferred to Michigan. Kyle, what were you doing? You should have come here.
Stick
it to them for not believing in you.
To Michigan, then it would have been a whole new thing for us last year.
That would have been unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's what he should have done.
My message to Ohio State is:
would have stuck it to them. It would have stuck it to them. He would have had success. I think that he was a little worried about the receiver situation, which is understandable.
Yeah,
yeah.
That would have been the ultimate. That would have been the sweetest revenge ever. That'd have been like JJ. Like that's what JJ did. Say, okay, all right, pal. You want to make that choice? I'll stick it to you.
Oh, that's right. They passed on JJ at some.
Yeah, JJ said he lied to me. He didn't just pass on him. He lied to me. So, anyway, yeah, man.
They deserve.
They did. But I'm not taking shots at them. It's more an observation from a competitive standpoint. Just wondering, is this going to fall short of the level of quarterbacking that they're used to having in Columbus? That's what I wonder.
The floor, I think, is Will Howard, and that's fine. Yeah. So I don't think they're in trouble. If Sayin is really not coming through, right? If he's having a lot of issues, if he's not identifying where his leverage is, that could be a problem for them, right? The concern there would be, if you're an Ohio State fan and trying to manufacture some concern, is that to run Ohio State's system, you have to find your leverage. And if you mess that up, you're throwing interceptions. It's an NFL style passing game, right? It's all about where's the leverage. And if he's not seeing the field right, and he's getting himself hit, that could be a problem. And if that's why Kineholz is with him, but if that was true, I think Ohio State probably would have, pried somebody out. You would have heard something about other options or portal or something like that. Ohio State would not just be like, okay, we got these two guys and they're battling it out. If that's what's happening, I think they want Julian Sayin to win it. I think they want to keep him motivated. I think that he's going to win it. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. I think that Ohio State's passing game, until it's not, is fine.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Julian Sayin there too. So
yeah, it's going to be Julian Sayin. It's definitely going to be Julian Sayin. I mean, this is Ohio State, man. Yeah. This is going to be Julian Sayin. Now, will it stay Julian Sayin if they start feeling about him the way that Ryan Day obviously felt about Kyle McCord? That I don't know, because he turncoat. He did the turncoat thing on him. I mean, it's just like,
it seems to me they ran him out of the program.
That's exactly what they did.
And I thought he was a really good player. I mean, I thought he was fine.
They ran him out of there. So
they ran Knowles out of there too, right? That's the thing. At Ohio State, they hate you when you play, and then after you're gone, after you can't help them, and that's when they love you, right? That's when they hold you up, because that way they can say, "Oh, you're not Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer." And as soon as Urban Meyer retires, Urban Meyer's gets to have a class on ethics, right? The least ethical person in college football, and they give them, right. That's what they do. And they don't do it because they love you. They do it because they want to hold you over the next guy. So now they got, they're hanging Ryan Day. They're going to be like, oh, look, you're not Urban Meyer. You're not Urban Meyer. The second Ryan Day is gone, they're going to love him.
Well, and it's, what they aren't going to be able, I don't think anyway, to rely on their defense as much this year. I'm not saying they're going to fall off the map, but to think that their defense is going to be as effective with Matt Patricia. Even if you thought Matt Patricia was a good coach, which he is not, they're still learning a new scheme, and we know that can take some time. So, but he's not a good coach.
I mean, the circle between Lions fans and Michigan fans when they announced Matt Patricia as their new defensive coordinator, replacing Jim Knowles, who's a really good defensive coordinator, even though he had an insane reaction in 2002. That man. The only thing about Patricia that I think might work there is he was at his best, right? When Patricia really looked like a good coach was when he was with the Patriots. And what were the Patriots? They all hated each other there. They were all horrible to each other there. And it was survival of the fittest. And he looked
a really good coach when he was with Bill Belichick.
Well, yeah. But that worked for them. Everyone was at each other's throats. Everyone was ready to throw each other under the bus in that franchise. And it worked because the pressure just made everybody that good. And that's what Ohio State is. They're the Patriots of college football.
Well, no.
He went from working with Bill Belichick to Ryan Day. Can we not really see the difference?
I'm trying to make the case here, Sam. I'm trying to make the case
for why this is work. Have hired Patricia back? I didn't see him clamoring for Patricia.
No, because he's got like 8 different children and children of his.
Yeah, he's got his son Steve Belichick. So. Anyway, we got to get out of here.
There needs to be a coordinator.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA online at thebig1050.com.
The Big 1050